Modern feudalism. We are talking about how things will never be the same again. The elite and all the different scientists and scientific professions including psychology and sociology had really claimed in the 19th and 20th century that the old ways of doing things were just the leftovers of bygone orders of religion. Things like marriages and having children and people having the rights to decide of what they want to do in life, etc., was just too untidy for them, and they wanted to bring in a planned society. That really is the reason why they brought out Charles Darwin. They wheeled him out to the right time. Darwin himself was no genius. He came from a lineage whose grandfather had even written a book about evolution, and the rest of the stuff he simply took from Wallace. But it was the Royal Society, the High Freemasonic, that used the sciences. It's still very big today. If you want to get anywhere in sciences, you have to be a Masonic member, because you are sworn to secrecy. It's them who picked Darwin to be the champion for this new phase. There would be a future phase, and it was the right time to bring it in, to put the last nail in the coffin of religion. And therefore the age of reason was to truly start to prevail. It also meant a gap would be left. The public, the masses, if you like, had always had some ideal to follow. Whether it was religious or a philosophic idea, Marxism was definitely a belief system if you truly understand it. And it came from a man whose father was a rabbi. So he really transposed a very old religion into Marxism, which became communism. And it's no coincidence that the exact same goals of communism match up with the goals of the Pope of Freemasonry. Albert Pike trained many people, including Mazzini, who took over him to start the World Revolutionary Party. Then, Mazzini's work has been handed over to a man called Lenin. And we all know what happened there. All tied together, because these people were indeed enlightened. They were way past the superstition of religions, although they would use religion to bring in a new age. That's why the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry was called the New Age back in the 1950s, and they said they would bring into the public the New Age, the new religion. This has been repeated by Gorbachev and others, who admitted they were atheists, but then they would bring in a religion for the world's public, which will be based on a form of earth worship. Environmentalism, as we see, the Land Army, as it was called a long time ago. This big green army is part of that earth-type religion, comprising of scientists at the top, the new priesthood, and all the gullible followers at the bottom that live in cities and watch television and think that forests are something that you stroll through like parks in the cities. But everything has been accomplished, and now we are in the plant society. All they have to do now is to convince the public to allow themselves to be guided and ruled by the experts in all the different departments of government, and that's the new daddy and mommy as well. Lord Bertrand Russell was given royal assent to start up the first educational schools to go beyond of what everybody has tried before because of legal reasons. He experimented with children in mixed schools, male and female, very young age, many of them coming from orphanages, so that no one would ask what was going on. And he did try to encourage prepubertal sexual contact between them before puberty. He would follow them then on for a few years to see if they would bond to someone during this time to the opposite sex. And it was found that it would be hard for them to bond with a single person from then on. That's why the United Nations big front for the New World Order is pushing all this strange stuff like teaching children at kindergarten to masturbate in front of everybody else. That's no kidding, not just telling them to masturbate, but to engage in group masturbation. In the new society, we are so enlightened now that all perversions have gotta jump up on the old-fashioned ways of having morality and stuff like that in common sense. Because you must destroy all the old order out of chaos to bring in the new, and all of the old moralities are simply vestiges and taboos of previous civilizations. And we allow ourselves to be experimented with. Because our purpose now is to nurture the old idea of creating the Superman that began in Britain. Hitler copied just so much of what was written in Britain, including Lord Halford's stuff on geopolitics and so on, and the problems with races that all came from Britain. Was all designed in London by a very wealthy elite. We must never think that the wealthy elites are somehow stupid, as they were portrayed in a lot of movies, a sort of bungling aristocrats. They are anything but stupid. And when they don't understand something, they will hire the experts to understand it for them. Lots of cash can do that. As many think tanks as you wish. One of the founders of the Fabian Society, Lord George Bernard Shaw, who talked about creating the Superman, said that humanity was simply imperfect, especially the masses. He was looking at the masses who were coming out of an industrial area where they were literally stopped in growth because of malnourishment and tremendous hours of work, 16 hours a day. And to his mind there seemed to be too many of them. Just too many of them littering the city's landscape. And they wanted to get rid of them. So the best way to do that was to create a socialist society where, under the guise of socialism, it was offered to help those at the bottom of society. Organizations were founded, such as various health, medical and other authorities, children's aid, etc. Eventually those organizations were allowed to come in and start ordering about, and if necessary, sterilizing young women. Is that we all wanted? That a board would be set up to decide who could mate and who could not mate and who should be sterilized. That was the beginning of the Great Fabian Society, which was simply one arm of the Royal Institute for International Affairs, also called the Council on Foreign Relations. That is the organization where prime ministers and presidents report to, when something had happened that the public has found out about, or the presidents and prime ministers have done something wrong. They must speak to the CFR and explain themselves before they would go and tell the public their lies. So the world is very, very different from the one that we think of. And understanding this all resulted from the Marxist period, the term the masses. You are not the people anymore, we are just the masses. One is either part of the elite or one is part of the masses. In between you have this white-corded expert area. We are numbers, and therefore we are getting mass treatment for everything. And under every mass treatment there will always be a certain amount of people who, because of the different physiology, like different gene types, will have bad reactions to things like inoculations. The elitists know this. They even know the quota roughly in advance of who will come down with diseases immediately, or who will come down with crippling diseases over the years. If that happens, one has bad genes, and of course it has nothing to do with the virus that just has been released into the public.